Good afternoon and welcome to Edgewater Ranzel's webinar series. During today's webinar, Enterprise Performance Management thought leaders Russ Papparotto and Mike Killeen discuss the challenges faced by healthcare payers today and present case studies to highlight how modern performance management applications such as Oracle Profitability and Cost Management help clients evolve traditional cost allocation functions into a strategic profitability analysis platform that closely ties to the financial close, planning, and reporting processes, thereby maximizing the value of the finance team to the organization. Next slide, Mike. Mike Killeen is a Senior Vice President at Edgewater Ranzel and is an Oracle ACE. With more than 20 years of EP and BI experience during his tenure with Edgewater Ranzel and expertise across many domains, Mike has been a primary advisor to Oracle Product Management on HPCM and PCMCS for the last 10 years. Russ Papparotto is the President of Information Software Solutions, a strategic partner of Edgewater Ranzel for the past 7 years on healthcare payer delivery. Russ has almost 3 decades of healthcare payer industry experience and more than 25 years of EPM and BI experience. Mike, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Joey. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending where you are. Really excited to be here with you today and with Russ Papparotto, a colleague of mine dating back to 2005. Real quick on our agenda, we're going to do a brief introduction to our firms, talk a little about our thought leadership in this space. Then I'm going to turn it over to Russ to really get into the business problem definition for healthcare payers. A lot of change in the industry over the last several years, and we're anticipating more to come. So Russ will talk a little bit about that. I'll dive into an overview of the Profitability Cost Management solution itself, how it fits as part of a larger performance management framework. And then Russ and I will go through a couple of case studies showing how our customers have actually put this technology to use and some of the business benefits realized before wrapping it up for Q&A. So first, a brief word from our sponsor, Edgewater Ranzel. Edgewater Ranzel recently celebrated 20 years, and in April will be 21 years of integrated business analytics. First starting off as an Arbor software partner, and then becoming Hyperion and ultimately an Oracle partner. Since our inception, we've delivered over 2,000 Oracle Hyperion projects through performance management, business intelligence, and big data for over 1,000 customers with the repeatable, proven methodology and implementation approach. Like many firms in our space, we've pivoted from predominantly focusing on on-premise-based implementations for the planning, financial close, and profitability suites to the cloud. And a key tenet to our success is the ability to bring thought leadership and capabilities around integration and workflow to support those deployments. We have experience across multiple verticals. And again, as alluded to in the title, the primary focus for this webinar is on the healthcare space, for which we have a dedicated practice. Ranzel has been involved with Profitability Cost Management solutions since the early days, ranging from building custom solutions on top of the S-based technology. Again, my first personal experience working with Russ back in 2005 was specifically on this. So later on, where we helped Oracle really deliver the first on-premise packaged application, first with Hyperion and then Oracle for HPCM. Today, our combined firms between Russ and myself has over 60 implementations out in the field, with many for healthcare payers. So I'm really excited to have Russ with us today to take advantage of his experiences as well. And then finally, just as an FYI for everyone, there's a wealth of collateral that's out there. So if there's any interest in follow-up, Ranzel is actually running an overall webinar series on the Profitability and Cost Management technology, which you can access through the PCM webinar series website. We've got other webinars and events published on our events page, and of course, we are active bloggers, so I highly recommend everybody take advantage of that when they can. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Russ Papparotto. Again, really excited to have him here with us today. He's going to talk a little about some of the business challenges faced by healthcare payers, the things that they're looking for in performance management solutions. With that, Russ, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the kind words and the introduction. I am happy to be here with my trusted partner Ranzel and Mike, which we've known each other for some 12, 13 years now. So what we're going to delve into initially here is on the healthcare side is the many challenges that the industry is facing, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years with the Affordable Act, the changes in the requirements for benefits, as well as for reporting. So it is in a fluid environment. Meeting at the White House with many of the Blue Cross plans, as well as Humana, Cigna, and others, talking about the direction that might be coming in the road here within the next year. Hopefully, we'll add some clarity to what the expectations are on a healthcare payer reporting requirements. So that was the biggest piece that was coming down. Some of the other pressures is of course to lower the premiums. Premiums have skyrocketed in the individual market, especially over the last 4 to 5 years. The Affordable Care Act is one of the driving forces to have some issues that reporting-wise that are associated with the Affordable Care Act, reclassification of expenses to quality improvement costs, et cetera, to support regulatory reporting. So those two are biggest drivers from a regulatory perspective. We also have situations where large employers are moving away from adding or offering health care per se, and pushing more people into the individual market. So overall, we need a more sustainable, portable employee benefits from employer to employer. Of course, reduction of fraud and increased claim accuracy is all going to go towards the profitability of the company. What we have, though, in this is a large portion of the cost of running the business and the administrative expenses that had to be aligned with these lines of business or product offerings that are being made by the insurers. We have to make sure that we're accounting for them accurately so that the overall pricing of the product going out are accurate. And at the same time, we must adhere also to challenges of regulatory allocation rules and methodologies that are going to be enforced for those who might be processing government type of claims through CMS, FEP, et cetera. Down. They're the major challenges that we're having at this point. Okay, Mike, next slide. And what the CFOs are talking about, cost transparency need improvement. Okay, so we had this by working with Oracle over the past couple of years, is that 78% of the CFOs are considered the accurate cost information as an area for improvement in their companies. We need to get to that level of detail. We're more aligning the cost of the company with products they sell and the level of effort that we need to sell them. Okay, so 78% of the CFOs are looking to do this. 93% are taking action to improve that quality of the cost information. Over the past 7 years, with the advent of HPCM, we've been able to see a distinct trend, not only within the healthcare industry, but other industries, of people aligning these costs most accurately and being able to add to their accuracy in the price. Okay, Mike. Okay. So with that, with the cost accounting, we have some typical pain points on questions we hear out in the field. How do we improve our traceability? We're doing allocations or to analyze the data. The rest is to really delve in and understand. Doing something in a black box is one thing. Understanding what drives the cost, et cetera, is an entirely different quandary that most people are hitting. A lot of people have the data locked up, and it might be in a warehouse or it might be in spreadsheets, et cetera, that are using as drivers. How can we automate that process? We don't want to spend 3 weeks trying to push data through the system in order to get it, but especially if we're doing something in such detailed level. How can we utilize the tool to make this more efficient for us? Levels of granularity, can we use budget, actual, forecast? What can we push through? And how can we set up a system that want to take care of these at various different levels? Going down, we want to look at how do we better understand our costs at the end of the process? So what are our business dimensions? How do we analyze our data? How do we satisfy our people? How do we put our power into the hands of the people doing the analysis? We don't want to be tied to the IT department for either pushing the data through the system, tying it out, auditing the data, or more importantly, reporting type of application and piecemeal out in the field and make it very difficult for our users. It's all you have the data, but it doesn't let a level tool. And then finally, how can we make it easier for our teams to update, change, or run multiple versions? This is one of the big ones that we, in the past, actuals are being allocated because we're using it as a scorecard. We see a trend moving towards looking to the future. How am I going to do my allocations to plan for the future? I must plan for multiple versions going out. So if we expect an increase in membership or a decrease in membership in certain products, what are the things I can do? How is this tool going to help me serve and answer those questions forward? Okay. So with those questions and the need for the information, available to us, we've traditionally seen most applications being built in one of 3 different types of approaches. Spreadsheets. So we see 100 or 200 sheets of Excel files all linked together with various cell references. Okay, very manual, constantly. It's a very time-consuming process to push it through, and then the analysis is not very good. It lacks a lot of governance and controls on our side. At the end, people spend more time reconciling than they actually. So a tool of choice for a while, and people have gradually said we need to move away from spreadsheets, and they look maybe towards applications. One of the applications they look at is, can I do this in an ERP? Why can't I use Suite or PeopleSoft as my allocation engine? Primarily for the lack of transparency. The data goes in, it is more of a black box, and you're tied or the segments within a ledger, so you're kind of locked in there. Once the data is in, any real true analytics, you have to export the data. And ERP is a transactional system. Okay, so it's very good at processing the transaction, but it lacks the ability to act information to you. Part of the title was transforming data into information, and is not very well accomplished within an ERP system. The last one is a custom-built black box. So people would have at it and build an application from scratch using Oracle, SQL, or whichever their tool of choice is. At that point in time, you do have a specific design in place in order to push the data into through an allocation process. What becomes the troublesome part with that is it is slow to adapt. As the business changes, as I need a new dimension, aggregation or a new driver, et cetera, how tied am I to that methodology because of the custom coding in order to join tables, et cetera, and push it through? So at times, what we're finding is that new requirements have new appendages added on to these type of tables, and it becomes unwieldy, and the overall infrastructure of it and architecture is very lacking. Okay, Mike? So part of the end result of what we're trying to do in an allocation, though, is satisfy many different constituents. Okay, so the result of cost allocation will be used internally for some finance functions, whether it's to support the annual plan or forecasting on a monthly basis. It's compared actuals to budget. How are we doing? It needs to support, in some cases, Sarbanes-Oxley in auditability, et cetera, especially when you're putting financial statements out on an actual basis at the end of the year. From a government program perspective, FEP, et cetera, those who are processing those type of claims or their activities are subject to additional audits, et cetera. So from finance, we have a lot of different constituents at this point. We also have our regulatory filings where some of the cost data is going to be coming out to support an insurance claim filing. It also is going to support, supplemental health care or the calculations of a medical loss ratio to determine whether any rebates are going to be, say, necessary back to our subscriber base. The differentiator here is that we have an increase. Our goal is to maximize our expense reimbursement. We don't want to leave any money on the table for government type of programs. We must be in compliance, regulatory compliance, and we must turn towards moving away from just cost allocations to profitability by line of business and market segment, which is the primary organization is to what is our fully loaded cost and combine with our care and revenue to get that profitability. Okay, Mike. Okay, so typically in a healthcare model, this is just an example, we start off somewhere, in most cases we're starting off an administrative expense. We have some overhead type of allocations and some definite IT chargebacks, okay, that are taking place. So that is really considered more of a shared services type of activity, down to the consuming cost centers, whether they're profit centers, et cetera. And then there it goes through a series of allocations that in the end are shooting to get profitability, say, by line of business or market segment or rate funding, and for each operational unit. So it would go, the path going through follows definitive stages approach, step-like approaches to get to our data. And the key part is to keep that granular level of granularity necessary to optimize our business. The other part that we have is we're seeing is related to the medical loss ratio reclassifications for quality improvement costs, and that is traditionally done on a year-to-date basis, with the other approach on a monthly. So in that case, it's by line of business, market segment, rate funding, and operating unit again. So we still have the same dimensionality, but the approaches and what we're trying to accomplish are going to be different. Typical drivers, FTEs, rated members, member month available. Sometimes we have some manual percentages input, and at the end we're looking at stuff, say, fixed and variable. Have gone to producing reporting from a gap and stat type of basis, depending on what the business process we're trying to accomplish. Okay, Mike? So typical outputs going along with that slide, or cost per day type of information related back and forth with, say, a healthcare provider, administrative expense, legal entity type of reporting. The major goal in a lot of these allocations on the payer side is product line P&L, cost of care, membership, product profitability. So per member per month type of calculations all the way through. So in an actuals perspective, sometimes we're calculating the per member per month, other times we're using the driver word. So these are kind of just some of the that we've seen across the healthcare payer industry. Okay, Mike. So the expected outcomes of profitability and this cuts across all industries, okay? But the relevance, the data in an allocation system must be, relevant to what our goals are. So we need to be able to look at our operating results, our financial results, and our revenue or cost model, and that's probably down at the analyst level, okay? The agility, we must have an application and a model that we can make quick changes to. It can't be 3 months to go back to an IT unit and have them recode something before we see the effects of those changes. So the application must have a lot of agility, as do people who are working the system, and reliability. Okay, this is probably the key one. We must be able to support the numbers. How do we get the numbers? How did I align these costs with these business processes, to these products? They are accurate so that we can determine whether something is profitable or not, whether we have to drop a product, add a product, expand the product, expand more marketing, etc. It's made for strategic, for the senior management and their strategic decisions. So with that, Mike, I think that hits most of the challenges that we've been experiencing.
Great, thanks, Russ. And I'm going to apologize. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We're going in and out a little bit, but we'll muddle through it as best we can.
Oh, okay.
So, Russ talked a little bit about a couple things, and if I was just going to summarize, it's the fact that in this industry there's pressure to do more with less, and there's a myriad of reporting requirements that need to come into play. The challenges that many of our customers face is that the tools that they're using, whether they're purpose-built or not, may not necessarily be linked to a larger performance management framework. And so being able to put all the information you need together quickly and timely is important, and certainly software is part of the solution to that. So at Ranzel, when we talk about performance management and what it is, we effectively say performance management is largely about linking your business strategy to your execution. Strategy is largely about defining where are we going, and what can we achieve organically versus inorganically, what's going to be your differentiators. Planning is about how we're going to get there. It's about accountability reporting. It's about creating the commitments in your go-forward cycle. But in addition to that, it's the appropriate forecasts about whether or not we're going to meet our goals and should we do something differently. Execution is the continuous monitoring as well as the publication of final results to stakeholders, be it internal and external. Then finally, we have insights. Insights gets into the why did something occur, or what if we did something differently. And again, if we think about the traditional tools that are part of performance management, this is really our pivot between enterprise planning, financial close and consolidation, and profitability analysis. And again, the key takeaway from here is that even with purpose-built solutions for profitability analysis, they have to be linked as part of a larger performance management ecosystem. A little bit later on, we discuss case studies. One of the themes that you'll actually see as both Russ and I talk is how these processes are linked to each other. So if we take another look at performance management and kind of what comes into effect, we'll see our owners and investors, our management, our regulators, really our key stakeholders on top, as well as our day-to-day operational systems focused on customer and resource management, or our financial systems as control. Really the EPM suite kind of sits at the center of all of these components. So, historically with performance management, we effectively saw on-premise tools supporting a number of these capabilities: Hyperion Planning for budgeting and forecasting, Strategic Finance for strategy management, Hyperion F-Space for performance reporting, and HFM for financial close and reporting. And again, back in 2007, recognizing the need, Oracle introduced the on-premise Hyperion Profitability and Cost Management product, which was a purpose-built application that satisfied this particular use case, but was also tightly coupled with the rest of the performance management system. Well, back in 2014, and ever since that time, Oracle has stated its intentions around focusing on cloud. And so in much the same way we saw the thought leadership and the capabilities around each of the performance management applications, we've seen the same thing, starting off with PCMCS and HPCS for planning, and in April soon to support strategy management, FEP for close and consolidation, and the new EPRCS for narrative and reporting, causal reporting. Well, if you've been paying any attention to the Ranzel webinar series, back in October of this year, Oracle introduced a new purpose-built cloud-based application for profitability and cost management called PCMCS that was built on much of the same really powerful capabilities for the on-premise suite, but introduced some additional reporting and embedded visualizations that we'll get into a little bit today that kind of take it to the next level and really speak to that theme that Russ called out before around going from just an engine for cost allocations to really focusing on profitability analysis. So what is Profitability and Cost Management Cloud Service? It's basically a cloud-based package performance application that provides a allocation engine that is business user driven, as well as embedded intelligence and reporting that facilitates the analysis of results, as well as allowing end users to quickly answer questions around where does this allocation come from. And then finally, it takes advantage of some of the same investments Oracle's made from an automation and integration platform to support both cloud to cloud as well as hybrid to cloud deployments. From a business benefit perspective, one of the things that we really like about this product is there's not a massive initial investment. Typical cost allocation deployments start off with user counts of the order of 10 to 25. And while the models themselves are complex, they tend to be isolated. So we've actually been finding in our customer bases that even if you're an existing on-premise EPM or ERP customer, this product really represents a great, quote unquote, dip your toe into the water capability as far as cloud goes. You know, as far as benefits for PCMCS, you know, Ranzel has come up with an acronym that we call FAST. First, focusing on flexibility. Flexibility is business user-driven flexibility. As your business changes, the ability to effectively update your model without needing an IT project. This is also flexibility to run multiple versions and what-if scenarios. So, for example, if you're planning a reorganization and want to assess the impact of that reorg and costing approach on your output, being able to, in the tool, create another version to assess that is critically important. The second is accuracy. Accuracy is largely about confidence in the numbers, and a lot of the times confidence in numbers comes from controls and automations. This is typically the major flaw with Excel, which is, we have a joke at Ranzel, we say a little bit when we're looking at existing Excel models, do you want it to be consistent or do you want it to be right? Because invariably there's something that somebody put in it along the way that they've forgotten about, whereas a structured system actually exposes those straight away. The third is shared methodology. Shared methodology is largely about ensuring you have a consistent allocation and profitability analysis platform for all management cycles. For example, there's not only a need to support allocations and profitability analysis for your actual financial close process, but for comparisons for budget and forecast. Having a consistent tool that can actually run this across all management cycles is important. And finally, the last is T for transparency. This is really about providing receivers of charges, product owners, cost center owners, customer owners, understanding into the internal services that they're consuming, as well as providing visibility into service providers on what sort of shifts they should make in their planning cycles around resource staffing and approach in the face of changing external demand. So really quick, if we think about a typical profitability and cost management deployment, there's a fairly consistent workflow that we see. And it starts off with data. And like most EPM projects, there's going to be an information management function, which is largely related to the master data dimensions, which typically take some combination of the chart of accounts along with some operational constructs such as product or customer, as well as analytical constructs such as activity, as well as your pre-allocated financial data coming from either the general ledger or budget and forecast from planning, and then finally driver statistical data from a variety of sources. So a lot of the same steps that one would go through in any sort of project around sourcing the data would be consistent here. Our general philosophy for profitability cost management products is don't let your PCM project get hijacked by a data warehousing project. Prioritize your data, pick and choose the most important data elements to automate, which typically starts off with your hierarchies, financial data, and a couple of drivers, but then evolve. It's okay to use Excel to get some statistics in the short term, and you can certainly evolve that over time. The second major component is the model development itself. Model development is largely the process by which a business user goes in to change the model, i.e. building something from scratch or establishing new methodologies, or update the model, i.e. specifically what do I need to do to the model so as I add new cost centers, as I add new accounts, what needs to occur. So there's a consistent series of steps that the interface walks you through. It's very prescriptive in its approach, that it starts off with establishing a point of view or slice, creating groups of rules called rule sets, creating individual rules themselves, and then ultimately putting a sequencing in place for execution. Once the model is in place, typically in accordance with each management cycle, whether or not we're looking at a monthly close process or a quarterly forecasting process or an annual budgeting process, there's a model execution step that effectively starts off with loading and validating inputs, so predominantly financial data and driver metrics, executing rules, validating results, and then publishing, at which point, once the model is published, the reporting and analysis function begins. For many of our customers, there's standard packages that need to be created, such as financial reports books. But one of the key transitions that we're seeing with the cloud is this concept of embedded analytics, embedded visualizations. You know, many of our customers in the on-premise world would take the output of PCM solutions and deploy them to separate BI reporting tools. One of the things that's really nice about Oracle's strategy with the cloud is that we're actually seeing much of those embedded visualizations and analytics show up in the tool itself, which has a really nice benefit, particularly when looking at what-if scenarios and other sort of use cases that may not be part of an established management cycle, but something that's still relevant for consumption by business stakeholders. So just to kind of give a little bit of flavor of the Profitability Cost Management product, PCMCS, like the rest of the Oracle EPM application, takes advantage of a new mobile-ready, simplified user interface, while model development requires really somebody to kind of get into the guts of it. You can see quickly from here that the interface is set up to support an information consumer or power user to really get at whatever content they want with the click of a button. Whether or not they want to access standardized reports, whether or not they want to engage with mobile-ready dashboards, or they want to take advantage of some of the powerful reporting features of PCM specific to it, such as transparency screens and profit curves, in a place that we call intelligence. One of the themes I like to think about in the reporting world, if reports is around information consumption, and intelligence is really related to ad hoc analysis, dashboarding is really tends to be something in between user-guided analysis. And again, the investments Oracle's made in this product, specifically as we pivoted from the on-premise to the cloud, are focused largely on that. A couple of the pillars then for each of the process steps. Respect to data management, like the other EPM applications, PCMCS product has a number of ways to get data into the system. There's a native load format that's flat file. If you could put your data into a particular format, maybe by extracting it from an existing on-premise solution, you can load it in straight away, either through a flat file or through SmartView. In addition, like PVCS, there is a data management component available with PCMCS that we think of as technology called FDME Light in the Cloud. This provides data mapping and scheduling capabilities as well as limited drill through. So, for example, if you decide you have data sets that contain additional information, maybe you want to bring in product details for your drivers, but you're only costing to a product line level, you can actually source product details, collapse and map it up into the tool, and then provide a drill back to that for additional analysis. And then finally, for hybrid customers, many of our customers in the on-premise world have made investments utilizing a technology called FDME. As of a particular patch level, I would have to consult with my Oracle ACE colleague, Tony Scalise. FDME does have an ability to directly integrate from cloud to on-premise and vice versa, making it a powerful choice for those who've already made those investments. Again, once the data has been deployed, there's the actual model development itself. For most of our implementations, this is really the guts of the project. This is the mechanism whereby for each unique point of view, that's a unique combination of year, period, scenario, version, a user will go in and establish groups of rules called rule sets, and then within each one of those rule sets, create individual rules that effectively kind of operate in the same way. Define your rules definition, name, sequencing, establish a source where you get your money from, establish your destination where you're putting your money to, and then identify your driver, using claims or premiums or something else along those lines to make that happen. I'd probably say that one of the most powerful differentiators for PCM for the analyst, again, is that to make changes you're not coding. You're using the packaged application, and it's helping to address that. But then we have model execution. Talking to many of our customers, we find that a tremendous amount of time spent in checking before and after if the allocations are actually working. PCM provides a number of pre-built out-of-the-box reports that support both pre-calculation validation as well as post-calculation validation. For example, if you make a master data change and you have a rule that's referencing a node, PCM will actually tell you whether or not that your rule will break before you run the rule. It's kind of nice to know before you get 3 hours in and in the 4th hour something breaks on you. In addition, for post-calculation validation, PCM provides both program documentation, which is useful for audit purposes, so each month you can actually grab a snapshot of what was run, as well as rule balancing reports so that you've got an ability at the end of the day for each rule set to clearly identify what goes in, what goes out, and the considerations around that. And then finally, we highlighted this before, reporting and analysis. PCM provides, besides the standard tools that many on-premise customers are used to, such as SmartView and web-based financial reporting studio, additional embedded analytics specific to the product that I kind of coin as BI Lite, that provide capabilities such as dashboarding, as well as intelligence capabilities such as profit curves and as well as trace screens. Again, the sort of things that help improve the productivity and insight, and again, really help facilitate that movement from cost allocation to profitability analysis, flipping the script for the roles of finance for more value-added activities on the analytics perspective of things versus actually running and executing the model. So that we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about a couple of case studies. I'm going to turn it back over to Russ. He's going to share some of the experience of what he's been doing with some of the blues. And then Russ is going to turn it back over to me to talk about our experience at a couple of customers, and then we'll wrap up and hopefully have a little time for Q&A. So that, Russ, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, so the first case study that we have is related to 3 Blue Cross and Blue Shield plans. We have, between myself and Mike, he mentioned that we have approximately 60 different models, HPCM models out there in the in the overall space, many of which are payors, and we have 3 Blue Cross and Blue Shield plans that are actually using the same exact data model. Each was out there. Overall, they have combined about 5 million members, offering a variety of products. Okay, the challenges that they each had and faced is that their existing systems were either built on the ERP or they were in-house developed applications, which we saw earlier. They struggled with getting data in and out and processed and analyzed. In some of those cases, the Excel process they had was just not sufficient enough to support their data needs itself. Once the Affordable Care Act came in, that put a new curve on everything, and the access and the ability to remodel and change their allocation process and add additional information became a necessity, and they started looking for different solutions to cost management. Two of the three are actually using two models each to accomplish their allocations, doing different purposes with each one. And the third plan is actually just use.
Unfortunately, I think we're still having a couple of technical difficulties. I think what I'm going to do in the time is I'm going to move it over to an additional case study, and then when Russ comes back on, we'll. So another example of a customer. We have a customer who's a not-for-profit managed care organization in the New York City metropolitan area, and at the time they had over about 900,000 members and a network of over 24,000 providers. This customer was typical to many of our customers in that they had some existing footprint in the Oracle Hyperion stack, previously deploying Hyperion planning to support the budgeting and forecasting process. However, as part of their planning process, they needed to ensure that their administrative expenses, which were predominantly planned on a company and cost center basis, are able to pivot appropriately from that departmental view to their key management entities focused on line of business or product, as well as regions. Again, we were talking before about how customers are doing it today. This is an example of a customer that had a fairly intricate, fairly complicated Excel model that was somewhat difficult to understand, somewhat difficult to update. And I remember for this particular project, we spent a fair amount of time going through the methodologies themselves to make sure we had it. So this customer implemented Profitability Cost Management to replace their Excel models. They also used this as an opportunity to expand the capabilities, because at the time they were looking for an ability to start highlighting spend coming through their systems that was showing up as admin spend, but instead could have been more directly attributed to cost of care for product. So they actually used some of the changing requirements along the way as kind of the basis for doing the implementation. And at the end of the day, that application delivers the admin expenses to their key dimensionals for analysis alongside their premiums or cost of care, their membership by region, by product, and by geography. As far as benefits, completed the planning process that helped the customer better understand profitability analysis. In addition, it gave them a framework for making it easier to incorporate additional costing methods. We talked about the versioning capabilities to support additional stat filing requirements with local state boards. Real quick on the solution architecture, we have a general ledger with financial data up top. We have a corporate planning model with financial data for budget forecast, and we have a data warehouse for various driver statistics. This customer also deployed Hyperion planning to support forecasted volumes for things like membership and premiums as well. And effectively, the pre-allocated financials for actuals and budget, as well as various pieces of driver information predominantly related to things like membership and premiums were fed into the model. HPCM performed the allocation process, and analysis occurred at the end of the day. This is kind of at a glance, so I won't spend too much time of it, some of the details of the model, but you can get some visibility into the different types of departments and the drivers that were utilized, as well as a little bit of an overview of the dimensionality of the model, predominantly focusing at an initial pre-allocated view by entity, which is cost center, company, cost center, and account, to a post-allocated basis really on product and region. with some analytical structures for pooling purposes to help facilitate the model at the end of the day. Russ, I'm just going to pause and see if you're back on, and we could spend a few more moments on the Blue Cross Blue Shield case study before wrapping.
I'm back on, Mark. Can you? Am I going in and out still?
You are clear. So I'm going to bring it back to your side and I'll let you carry on.
Okay. My apologies, everyone. So the Blue Cross and Blue Shield plans, there were 3 Blue Cross and Blue Shield plans that we have implemented models, for which we've implemented models. These 3 plans have a total of 5 million people who are members combined and are leaders in each of the states that they practice business in. The key challenges that they had was that they were on an ERP implementations, or they had their own custom-built applications. With the advent of the Affordable Care Act, it kind of pushed them in a direction where they needed to move off of those models because they had to make changes to their allocation approaches to support those type of regulatory reporting that came along with it. That kind of pushed them to make a decision of direction to go, either to continue to try and expand out or and add appendages onto their existing apps, or to take a fresh new approach and to their processes. What we were able to do is we moved them to Oracle Profitability Cost Management to model those processes out. And successful in that we were able to move those models into the new tool, keeping the same type of methodology at the beginning and then adding on to what we needed to afterwards. So the benefit is they were able to keep in compliance with, were able to keep their same methodology, but they were also able to continue to maximize their reimbursement, keep the extensive audit capability that was required, et cetera. So they stayed complete compliance with all pieces. Going on to the next one, just briefly, here's an architect. We have data coming out of an e-business suite, or et cetera, where we're loading some flat files, and we're going into HPCM. We're supporting the HPCM with some planning apps to feed some data in, or have some data capture and feeding it into HPCM. And then at the end, we're supporting the reporting with SmartView and financial reports. Okay, Mike? Just briefly, some reports that we're able to get out. In this case, we're looking at a cost center by financial cost objective, or final cost objective by month, and then we have a second one looking at some of the statistical data. In this case, we're allocating not only nominal data, but some statistical data related to FTEs. Okay, Mike? And the last one is showing that we are also taking some of our data and transforming it, and we're using it to support some of the reporting related to quality improvement, and transforming our data from a line of business or a product approach into a market segment approach. So the first one shows the outcomes and the quality improvements coming down the rows across market segment, and the second one is showing that actually we have those outcomes, the quality improvement costs rather, by individual account numbers, by salaries and everything else. So we're able to get that level of detail for each of these clients. Okay, Mike?
Great, thanks, Russ.
I know we're short on time. There you go.
No, I appreciate it. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to spend a few minutes just kind of closing and wrapping up, and then we might have a few minutes for Q&A. Joey's been tracking that. So, you know, I like this slide a lot because, you know, for most of our customers, regardless of industry, you know, there's kind of two perspectives on the space. Question number one is, you know, are you doing something already, but you don't like how you're doing it, and there are opportunities to do it better? And the do it better can be how long does it take to run the process? What's the quality of the output that I'm producing? What does it cost to maintain and support the system? The other perspective of it, however, is for customers who really need to start doing something. One of the real challenges in this particular space is that as regulations continue to change and reporting requirements change and strategies continue to change, there's a tremendous burden typically placed on finance and financial system teams to be able to update their models. So, we like putting this up because it really helps our customers kind of do a bit of a self-evaluation and get a sense as to kind of where they fit on that spectrum along the way, and whether or not tools like this, which are purpose-built really in the space, can offer benefit. Another thing I'll share is that, again, since Russ and I started in the space, again, he's been in it close to 30 years, and I'm 20 plus years. We've seen quite a shift in technology. And over the last several years, particularly with the pivot to cloud, we've actually estimated that in many instances, with both cloud and some of the new model types, specifically management ledger for the Profitability Cost Management product, we're seeing as much as 40% reductions in previous effort for deploying these solutions. There's a lower footprint in terms of the infrastructure required, and there's significantly less effort associated with data mapping and manipulations with some of the previous products. The benefit of that is that you can effectively do more with less, and it becomes a lower risk investment. And again, for many of the customers and prospects that we're talking to right now, this technology really represents a good initial dip your toe into the water for cloud, particularly if you're considering it from a larger EPM perspective. So to that end, to help it, and if there is an interest, Renzel has put forth a couple of solution sheets or programs to assist our customers. We have a Lightning Cloud Accelerator for ground to cloud. It's predominantly focused for on-premise HPCM customers who are assessing and evaluating cloud offerings. We actually have a blog on this as well. Then secondly is a PCMCS assessment workshop, which is a tailored advisory approach that we've had some success with, talking to customers about what they're doing today, and really getting to the root cause as to whether or not a solution like this would offer value in terms of helping to articulate a business case, as well as really getting a sense of what's involved from an implementation perspective. Again, being in the space for this long and have this many implementations as well, I'm very fortunate to work with an excellent team. And so if anyone out there has this sort of interest, please reach out. Again, we've got a variety of offerings that I think could prove helpful. And so with that, we have about 5 minutes left. I'll ask Joey whether or not there's any questions. Russ and I will stay on for a couple minutes to do that before we wrap the webinar.
Thanks, Mike. There are no questions in the queue right now. However, since we're going to stay on, if it's okay, Mike, I'll mention the additional webinars that are coming up in this series, this webinar series that we've been hosting. And that'll give time for anyone to pose questions if necessary. Other than that, questions regarding today's webinar can also be emailed at info@ranzel.com, and we will respond to your email. A recording of this webinar will be available on our website, where you may also find a number of previous webinars posted. We hope you gained insight from today's webinar. On March 7th, we're hosting a product standard costs webinar to demonstrate how PCMCS can be used to provide automatic and accurate valuation of products with your ERP. And we'll be wrapping up this webinar series on March 14th with a webinar that introduces a CFO and CIO cost transparency starter kit. Please visit our website to learn more about and register for any of our upcoming webinars, and follow us on social media to get alerts about upcoming events, training, and webinars. If Mike or Russ, is there anything else that you guys want to add before we bring closure?
No, I think just a couple things. As far as content, again, of resources available at randhill.com, and thanks for highlighting the upcoming webinars. We do have a couple of historical webinars that have been that might be relevant. Last week we did a productivity webinar, and last year we had a whole webinar series focused on planning, budgeting, and forecasting for the healthcare space. Again, I sometimes forget we have all this content out there. I encourage people to take the time and look at it. It's a wealth of information. I'd also like to thank Russ for his participation. You know, again, Russ and I have gone back many years. He's a trusted advisor and colleague. We value our partnership with his organization, and really want to thank him for the wealth of experience that he brought to the table here. So with that, I think we can webinar, Joey.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you to our audience for joining us today, and thanks to both Mike and Russ for sharing your knowledge and expertise during this presentation. And this concludes today's webinar. Thank you.